finally back with another video after probably 10 months from my last video. I went to take a break for quite a long time, and honestly I thought that I will not be doing any more YouTube videos until recently. It has always been on my heart for the past few months to always come back and to do videos again, but I think there were just a lot of doubts, a lot of fear, a lot of like, who am I? Can I even do it? What do I have to share at this moment? So there were just a lot of these kind of doubts and these kind of fears that really just kept making me push back the whole idea of doing video, and to a point I even felt like maybe this is not for me anymore and maybe I should just stop doing it entirely. But as I continue to think back of why I do this in the first place, it's really to share people my walk with God and my testimonies, and I think I shouldn't just give up like that. And it's always been on my heart. I've been praying about it, and I think right now at this point I feel like I'm ready. I'm in a better place to start sharing about my journey, and it's 2nd January 2025, and I think it'll be a very good start to my 2025. Let me just start by sharing the first thing that I've learned in 2025. And the very first thing that I learned is really about my identity. And my identity is not from the world, but it is who God say I am. And I think that's something that I always knew from the moment I started this Christian walk. People always talk about, we don't follow the world, but we follow what God says, right? And our identity comes from God. And I think it is something that it's very easy to say, but really understanding it and applying it into my life, it has been really challenging. And I think for the last 4 years of my life, when I kind of like went through this whole journey with God, I felt like I have always been working on that. But I think this year, after leaving my job, after going into a new church, everything happened around the same time, and it was really very overwhelming for me because everything was new. And when you meet a lot of new people, the first question they will ask you is, what do you do? And things like that. And I really, really hated that question, because whenever people ask me, what do you do? I just feel like I don't know how to answer them. And I think like working for so many years, it's very natural to tell people, say that, I am working at where, it's always your job first before anything else. So when I left my job, and when people ask me what do I work as, it's a struggle for me, because when I can't tell them what I work as, I feel like I'm lazy, I feel like I'm a bum, and I'm just worried about how they would think about me. Or the worst is they might think that, I have a very well-to-do husband. My husband is doing very well in his job, that's why I can not work. But the fact is, no, he's also just started up his career, and we are not even like earning much at that point in time. And it was just really difficult for me to like explain myself, and I felt like I constantly have this need to explain my situation, to explain myself. And if I don't, right, I just feel like insecure. I feel like, what if this person leave thinking otherwise about me, and that's not true, So I think the first few months, or at least like the whole year, it was really me learning how to not be identified by the works of my hands. And I think there was this period of time where I kept trying to fill my schedule, I keep trying to find things to do, and I just try to keep myself busy so that when people ask me what I do, I can tell them that, these are the things that I'm doing, though I'm not working now, but I'm doing all these things just to show to people that I'm not a bum, I'm not lazy. And I think at some point it just got so tiring for me. I just felt like I was just drained. just trying to, and I think the drain, right, is not in doing anything, but it's more of like in the mind, trying to tell myself that it's okay, and like trying to come up with things to tell myself that, you know, I don't have to be worried about what people say about me, but at the same time I'm very affected. So I think it was really draining for me emotionally that I actually decided to do a 30-day fast. And I think that 30-day fast really helped me so much. It really helped me to grow deeper with God. It helped me to really just seek God and ask Him, like, God, who am I? Like, who do you say I am? Yeah, and I think it's through that 30 days I broke free from a lot of things, and I realized that, you know, I start to learn how not to fill my schedule. I start to learn how to really also live my schedule to God and let Him decide, like, okay, what am I going to do today? And if God says that today is a rest day, okay, then I will learn to enjoy my rest day, which it is biblical that we all need to rest. And it's really me learning how to submit to God and to rest, and to, you know, if He were to ask me like on that day, okay, go down and meet this person, I really will go down and meet this person on that day. And usually when I go down on that day to meet this person, it's definitely what the person needs. And there are times where I even pray over a healing over somebody because I made myself available for God. And that made me realize that God can only use me when I can allow myself to be available for Him. I know who I am in Him, and that's when I will not be worried about what people think about me. I will not compare myself with other people. I will be happy at where I am. I am at peace with where I am. I am joyful despite my circumstances. And I think this was something that really helped me so much, that allowed me to also receive love from God. And I think when I first left my job, the early part of the year, I know I cry a lot. I cry a lot every time I go for worship and everything. And I remember one time God actually told me, say that, you know, let me love you, let me provide for you. And I know when I listened to those words, right, it felt so foreign to me, because it's like no one have told me that in my entire life. I grew up in a very typical Asian family that we really work hard for our money. And you know, my parents constantly say, if you have no money, right, you can't have any kind of life that you want. So to me, it's like I have to work for myself, right? If not, nobody can feed me. And I've been very independent since young. So when God tell me, let me love you, let me provide for you, it was so foreign and it feels so crazy. Like, how do I do that? You know, how do I do that? So I asked God, like, how do I do that? And God told me, say that, let me provide for you, trust me, and as you trust your husband. And I think that was when I realized that I couldn't trust my husband to provide for me financially, because I've been so independent financially that it just doesn't feel normal to depend on somebody to provide for me financially. And I think that was when I started to let go. I started to learn how to receive love from God, from my husband, from the people around me. And I think that was the thing that really transformed a lot of like relationships with people as well, because I started to learn how to love myself. I started to learn to also, because I'm loved, I'm able to love others as well. And you know, when people say certain things about me, it does still affect me, but it doesn't affect me that much, because I know that I'm loved. I know that God loves me. I know my husband loves me. I know that, that I have people who love me. And a lot of my relationships around me were kind of restored. And you know, I also had to cut away certain friendships that were not healthy for me. And I think that was the first thing that I learned this year, is to restore my identity. And also I realized that when I was not whole as a person, right, I find myself over-explaining myself, and I get so tired. And that was what I was saying about in the earlier part, right? And recently during my quiet time, I chanced upon this scripture that talks about that it is Proverbs 14:10, which says, "Each heart knows its own bitterness, and no one else can fully share its joy." So this is the NLT version, and I actually went up to look on the Passion Translation, and it says, "Don't expect anyone else to fully understand both the bitterness and the joys of all you experience in life." And this really, like enlightened me, because I realized all this time, I think for many years I've been trying to explain myself. Like every single thing I do, I feel like there's a need for me to explain myself. There's a need to justify myself. But when I read this verse, I was like, no wonder I feel so anxious all my life. I feel so worried all my life. It's because I've been trying to let people understand what I'm going through, but there's no need to. Because when I have a God who loves me so much, when I have a God who knows me so well, that's more than enough. I don't need anybody else to know me. And it's impossible for people to understand what I'm going through. So yeah, this is a verse that really helped me this year. And the second thing is to trust God in my finances. So like I said earlier, it was very hard for me to depend on anyone financially. And I think what really broke this whole fear of finances, right, is when in May, so during May and June this year, a lot of things like happened, and like a lot of things didn't go according to our plan, which is as usual. And so May and June this year, in 2024, we actually couldn't pay our bills, and yeah, our bills were just like rolling during that period of time. And I even prayed and asked God, like, why is this happening, and why are you not providing the finances? And going through these last few years, all the ups and downs, I know that when God can provide, He will provide. But when He doesn't, it means that there's something that I need to cut away. So over the years, I've already cut a lot of my expenses, and this year I was like, God, what else can I cut? There's nothing else I can cut, and the only thing that I can cut probably will be my retirement plans and my insurance, because this too is actually like bulk of my expenses also. So I'm like asking God, like, can I remove all this? Because isn't this too a necessity? Isn't this too a need? And because I was a financial consultant, and that was what I always talk about, and that is what I strongly believe in planning for myself. So it was really a struggle for me until one day I have a friend who sent me a podcast, and there was this part on the podcast, and this podcast is talking about generosity. And I know towards the end of the podcast, I was just like crying and everything, because there was this story of this guy who is a missionary, and he was out in the mission field, and he was getting old, and he was falling sick, and the doctors say that you need to go back home to get treatment, because if you don't, you will die in the mission field, and you will definitely have to lose your teeth. And his family was also asking him to go back, but he said that, no, I would rather die in the mission field than to go home. Even if I had to lose all my teeth, I would still want to be here to serve the people. Wow, and that was what really hit me so hard, because that was in the podcast, right? His action was generosity. His serving was generosity. And generosity is not just about money. It's just not about earning enough money and blessing the church, but it's about serving, like really putting yourself out there for people. And that really hit me so hard. And I remember I was crying on the way to church as I was listening to this podcast, and what came to my head was like God asking me this question, like, all this money that you've saved up for, all this planning that you've done, who will be the one benefiting it? And what would you want to leave behind, when you leave this earth? And I remember, like, my answer was, yeah, if I do keep all this planning, all these retirement plans, it's definitely for my next generation. But what about the other people that I could have impacted if I were to let go of these expenses? What if I were to let go of these savings? What, amount of lives that I could have impacted? Because if I were to let go of all this financial planning, I will be able to pay off my bills, I will be able to lower down my bills, and I'll be able to spend more time to really serve God and His people. And that is essentially why I left my job this year. So that was when I decided that, okay, I'm gonna leave my finances into God's hands. And I told God, like, God, that's all I have, okay? I am giving up everything, and I'm just gonna rely on you to provide for me, to provide for my next generation, to provide for basically all my financial needs. I'll just leave it to you. And yeah, that was the start of really God just blessing me so much more after that. And after that, I cleared my credit card bills, and I never lacked. Every single time I thought that, okay, that's it, God, there's no more money left, I don't know how to pay my bills next month, God will just deliver, you know, God will just bless me. And I'm just so happy to say that, you know, like, through this whole year, December, we had the lowest income. Me and my husband had the lowest income in December, but December was also the month where my husband was having his birthday, Christmas, New Year. There's so many social gatherings, but we are so glad that, you know, we are able to still bless other people through this whole occasion. We're still able to enjoy a good trip with my husband for his birthday, and we're still able to pay all our bills, and we are not in debt as of today. So really, I'm so grateful, so thankful that, you know, now we no longer have to keep a job or find a job just to pay off our bills. And like, we broke that cycle of, like, you know, just paycheck after paycheck, paycheck after paycheck, and we still have savings, you know, that we can fall back on. And yeah, so that is the second thing that I've learned, which is to trust God with my finances. And the last thing is patience. So patience has been something that I've been praying for since the beginning of my journey, many years, like a few years ago. And every single year, God just brings me on a deeper level of how patient I can be. And it's really amazing. So this year, what I learned about being patient is that it takes time to build things. And things like relationship, building a relationship, you know, having a new relationship with friends, okay, because I'm married, right? So my relationship refers to friends. And I realized that it takes time. And through this whole year, because I've been put into new situations, I'm in a new environment, totally new environment, nobody knows me, I find myself getting impatient to make friends with people, impatient to want people to know who I am. And then I start oversharing, I start over talking, and then sometimes it backfires. And I think this year there were a few things that happened that made me realize that I need to be patient with the process, I need to take time. And I think one of the incidents that happened is like, because I'm serving the youth ministry, and in the beginning, being in the youth ministry was very overwhelming as well, because the church is new and the ministry is definitely new to me as well, and the youths are new to me as well. And as much as I'm new to them, as much as they are new to me, I'm also new to them. And I think I get very discouraged in the beginning because I felt like it's so difficult to get them to accept me for who I am. And I feel like I keep trying my best to show them that I'm good enough, you know, and it's just not a good place to be in. And I find myself just so tired, so burnt out, and not enjoying the process at all. And until and I think that was one, about building relationship. And the second thing is also being patient in allowing things to happen. And I think for me personally, I never like having I don't like people feeling sad, I don't like people feeling angry, I just don't like people feeling any negative emotions. So whenever I there's conflict between people or between the youths, I will want to try to intervene. I will want to try to solve the problem so that make sure that everybody can just like live happily, you know. But I think this year I learned a hard lesson where sometimes God allows these things to happen, and sometimes I shouldn't. It's not time for me to intervene, and when I do intervene, it will backfire, and sometimes I will push the person even further away from me. So I think I had to learn how to let God, let God solve the whole problem, and while I just like be comfortable, be okay with all these feelings, because whatever that the person is feeling is not for me to handle, and I'm not God. Their emotions is their emotions, and I shouldn't be affected by how they feel. And I think I really had to learn that part, and I really had to just sit with it and just focus on my own journey, and let God do His work. And yeah, and I think another thing is also about so like a new opportunity came about this year as well, and I think I realized when this opportunity came about, I started to be very impatient again. I started to want to find my own solutions, wanted to like get this thing moving. I don't want to wait so long. I want to get it moving, and whenever things slow down, I will start to feel like, oh, I'm the one that is the problem because I'm not doing enough, I'm not fast enough, I'm too slow. And that's why it leads me to wanting to faster find a solution to get the things going. And I think just like last few months, some things happen, and I start to want to get solutions, want to get the thing moving, and because of that, right, I ended up in a very bad situation. And yeah, and I also learned from this whole situation that sometimes good things take time. And also I realized I have this tendency to find solutions to my problems and not waiting long enough for God to give me that peace and assurance. So patience in the waiting season is a hard posture. So I realized that patience, right, is a lot about when during your waiting season, when you're waiting for God to answer, what are you doing? Like, are you feeling anxious? Thinking of what is the next solutions, what are the things that you can do to solve this problem? Or are you feeling happy and joyful and being able to enjoy your time while waiting for God to answer? So as I look back, I realized like whenever I'm waiting for God, I'm always thinking of the next best solution. Always thinking of like, what if this thing doesn't work out? What if I miss the boat? What if I miss the opportunity? But I realized that actually patience is all about just, okay, you ask God, you tell God, okay, God, this is my problem, okay, and I have this solution, but I don't know if it will work. I will leave it to you. And while that whole waiting for God to answer, I should be doing things I like. Probably filming this video, or probably going to the gym, or probably hanging out with a friend, just to chit chat about life, while waiting for God to answer. So I realized patience is really not just so much about just waiting, but it's the posture that you have while you wait. These are the 3 things that I've learned. So one thing is really my identity is from God and not from the world, and trusting God with my finances. And the last one is patience. Patience is the heart posture while I wait. Yeah, so thank you everyone for watching until here, and I hope you learned something from my video, or like you can relate to my experience. Please share with me in the comments, and I look forward to read the comments. And yeah, I'll be back with another video. Bye.